Good afternoon. I'm Hernando Rojas, Director of the School of Journalism and Mass Communication, and I wanted to welcome you today to our December 2021 graduation ceremony. I want to welcome the families, the friends, the faculty and staff of SJMC, and of course, our most important guests, the students. There are defining moments for every generation, and your generation is not an exception. You have come of age in a world that changes rapidly, as many of the things that we took for granted seem to now be in flux. A global health crisis that tests the limits of our healthcare system, our solidarity, and even our beliefs in science. The frailty of democracy at home and abroad. The life cycle itself. In my parents' generation, for example, people retired from work to go see the world, while in today's generation, people want to see the world first. I'm convinced that change is overall good, albeit the setbacks that sometimes make us ponder about our collective future. When I look at our graduating class today, I feel even more optimistic about our future. We have seen you develop academically, but also as human beings and as responsible citizens. Whether it was studying on Vilas, creating a publication from scratch, or working on an internship, we follow your steps with admiration and pride. Today, we celebrate your accomplishments, the dedication and enthusiasm that brought you to this day and that will continue to guide you as you move along your path in life. I trust that the education you receive from your parents, your personal ethic, and our contributions to your skills in critical thinking have you ready to rise to the occasion. We hope to hear back from you regularly. Visit us, text us, Instagram us, Snapchat us. Keep us posted on whatever it is that you're doing and how you're changing the world. Thanks again, and on Wisconsin. I will now turn it over to our student Gaby Vinick interviewing Manu Raju, UW graduate, Chief Congressional Correspondent for CNN, and Advisory Board Member for the Center of Journalism Ethics. Take it on, Gaby.
Hi, I'm Gaby Vinick, and I'm here with Manu Raju. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Anytime, I'm happy to do it.
So tell me more about your time here at UW-Madison. What are some important memories or lessons that you carry with you today?
Well, there's a lot. I mean, it was as I've been in the course of this last couple of months, or as I've been trying to rack my brain thinking about all the great times I had in Madison, it's been hard to narrow down what I want to talk about, because I mean, it was 4 glorious years. I mean, I look back at my time in Wisconsin so fondly, because it was just, I had so much fun. I grew so much as a person, and it set me off into my career, and I really credit my time in Wisconsin for doing all of that. So when I was a freshman, I was in the old Augie Storms that were no longer exist, probably for good reason. They were not in the best condition, but we made the most of it. I was trying to, looking at different things about what I could do to all the different extracurricular activities that were out there. And I decided that I was going to go, and maybe I'll try to write for my student paper, because it was just fun. I was a sports fan, and my brother, when he went to college, was a sports writer for his paper. And I was like, maybe I'll do something like that. So I, at first I saw everybody reading a newspaper in class. Back when print was the thing, and there was no web. There was no web news. So I went down the street, because I saw everyone reading this newspaper, and I walked on State Street, and I said, "Hey, do you have a job for me? I hear you're hiring. I thought, are you hiring? I want to, everyone's reading about it. It looks great." It was actually the Onion. Because they were broadcast, they used to print in Madison, and I didn't realize the Onion was a satirical newspaper published in Madison that all the students read, not so much a student paper. So then I walked away, and I was looking around, and then I started looking. Everyone was also reading the Badger Herald, and I called up Badger Herald, and I said, "Do you have any room to be a sports writer?" And they said, Yeah, sure. Why not? Why don't you go down to hockey practice tomorrow, meet the sports editor there, and we'll see about writing the story. So I got my first story assignment then as a freshman year, my first semester. I thought that was great. I didn't know what I was doing. I learned a lot. Continued on doing different journalism type work at WSUM radio freshman year. And there was no sports department back then. That was internet radio back then when internet radio was not a thing. So there were like 4 people on staff or something, very small. And I got to do a lot of cool stuff because there was nobody really on staff. So I was at press conferences in my freshman year, first semester with Barry Alvarez, asking him questions after games. And he was not, they weren't the best questions. One time he shot me down, and one question I asked at a press conference, questioning what game I was actually watching. So I learned the art of humility very early. And I just kind of grew as a journalist. And that was just kind of on the side. I never really thought I was going to really pursue journalism. I thought it was just kind of a fun thing to do on the side. And I pursued my business degree. I went to Granger. I got inside my sophomore year. And I was still having fun with meeting a lot of friends, a lot of lifelong friends now, and hanging out on State Street, going to house parties, having a great time in college. So doing kind of everything that Wisconsin has to offer. And what really was, by the time that I was about to graduate, I realized that I really did enjoy my time working at the Badger Herald. I've been there did that for 4 years. I became sports editor there eventually, and then I decided this is where I want to go. And I really credit my time learning there, doing things, and getting that kind of experience for helping me move towards that that direction in my career.
Absolutely. And it's so reassuring to hear those words. I think many students often feel like they have to commit to a certain major or career path in order to land a desired job or in a particular field. So I don't know if you could speak to that as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Because look, if you go and you pursue a career that is consistent with whatever you majored in college, that's great. If you go do pre-med and then you go to medical school, you end up becoming a lawyer, and you majored in something similar to law or science or whatever, that's great. It's awesome. More power to you. But a lot of people don't. A lot of people like me, they pursue something they thought was interesting in college, and maybe you get some really interesting classes, but it just didn't end up fitting with my career path. So, and that's totally fine. The thing that I really try to tell folks is that, you should really be open to trying to explore new things, take challenges, take some risks, even if it does not appear that maybe you don't really know about it. You can learn on the job. You can learn from other people, and if it interests you, continue to pursue it, even if that's not necessarily what your background is in. But people will look back at and say, University of Wisconsin is a fantastic education. You've gotten a great degrees, graduates, and people look, in all fields will respect the work, the fact that you graduated from Wisconsin. So it doesn't really necessarily, if you change your career trajectory different from your major, it's fine. Especially since you got a 4-year degree from a great school.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I want to get to talking about your experience working as CNN Chief Congressional Correspondent. Specifically, how do you today navigate all of the daily pressures and working in such a fast-paced news environment?
It's very challenging because my day starts pretty much from the moment I wake up until late at night, and especially when when there's a lot going on in the news cycle, which seems to be always the case, but especially this year, especially during the Trump era and before that. I kind of go into the day, if it's a general congressional day where the House and the Senate are in session, I go into the day with a general roadmap about what's going on. I will, I wake up about 6 a.m. and I'm already dealing with emails from my bosses who are up an hour and a half before me sometimes as they're getting ready for the day and preparing for their morning conference calls. We have an 8 a.m. news gathering call where our bosses all report into like what is the big story on their particular beat, what's going on at Capitol Hill, things that I am working on, things that my other reporter colleagues are working on. And so that helps structure the news programs of the news agenda of the day, and they shows each develop their plans. And then at 9 o'clock, the larger network has an editorial conference call to discuss, what people see as the big stories, what our boss Jeff Zucker weighs in on as well. That happens while I'm pursuing my own path. I usually have a roadmap of what's going on. I know, okay, the House is in session at 9, they're voting at 11, the Senate is voting at noon. Joe Manchin is going to a hearing at 10 a.m. I need to ask Joe Manchin question X, Y, and Z. I can grab him before a hearing here. And then if I need to grab Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi, as she's leaving her office to go to the votes at 11, hopefully I can get Manchin at 10, grab him at 11, and then run back to the Senate for noon votes. And then I kind of juggling like 5 or 6 different things. And sometimes I'm covering the story of the day, like the latest development on the Build Back Better bill or the infrastructure negotiations, or sometimes I'm working on a story that takes more time to develop, an enterprise story, something that I need to gather some reporting for. So if I see Senator Susan Collins, who needs to weigh in about something about, I don't know, the vaccine mandate or something that I'm working on, I'll ask her about that. Or if I'm working on a story about the big backlog in ambassadorships because of Ted Cruz, and I see a Republican senator who wants to get ambassadors confirmed, I may grab him or her. So I have a list of stories that I'm doing. I have specific pursuits, and I have to have an idea of what the schedule is in the House and the Senate, and try to be various places at the right time. So much about Capitol Hill is being at the right place at the right time. You got to be in the hallways, you got to grab people as they're going in between meetings. There's a speaker is only available when she's in the hallway. You can ask her a question and hopefully she'll respond and make a making answer. And you basically have to be really, really well organized, know what you're pursuing, know what to ask when you see someone, and have a general idea of what you're reporting. And then on top of that, you have to balance, okay, am I writing a story for CNN.com? I got to write a story, especially if it's breaking news, deal with that. Or if I'm a longer story, finish my longer story. And then plan live shots that are coming down. I'll have a request for to be live at 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 12 noon, and figure out where I need to be for those live shots. So it's a combination of it's a major balancing act while you're really multitasking all day long. But at the beginning of the day, it really requires organization and kind of knowing what you need to do and what you need to pursue, and being able to think on your feet when news breaks or something changes pretty quickly.
Wow, that's incredible. And
I'll add one more complication on top of it. As a TV reporter too, it's there are only certain places in the Capitol where you can actually get people on camera. So I have to make a decision. If I need to get Joe Manchin on camera, I will go into the office buildings where I can get him. But if I need to get some senator who's there just to get information, I may forego my effort to get Joe Manchin on camera, but I may get another senator who is in the place where I'm not allowed to shoot, but I can still interview him or her and try to get information from them. So you'll have to make really split decisions about what do you want, need information, or need to get someone on camera to put them on TV. So all those kind of decisions are constantly making through the course of the day.
It's incredible that you're able to manage it all, and especially having to ask these very high profile politicians such tough and important questions. I am sure so many people are curious to know what your approach is to interviewing and storytelling when you are able to, reach them in the hall.
Yeah. So like my everyone has a different style of interviewing. My view of it is I don't want to ask questions in which I am just asking a 40-second question or 2 minutes or giving a speech and having someone respond to my speech. Like I want to ask them very direct, very pointed questions that will get them to make news, to get them to take a position on something, get them to answer something that they very, very clearly do not want to answer. And oftentimes when they are not answering your question, it's very clear to the viewer, that is news. So I have to think when I'm coming into the day, like if I see Nancy Pelosi, I need to ask her about this. So just, just because this is on my mind, because it happened like yesterday, I think it's all a blur, but I think it was yesterday, the day before. A big question had been about Nancy Pelosi about whether or not she's going to punish, the House Democrats are going to punish Lauren Boebert for making Islamophobic comments about Ilhan Omar. And Pelosi very clearly does not want to do anything about it. The progressives want Boebert to be punished. And going into her press conference this week, I knew that she wasn't going to answer. I knew she was going to shut down the question about it. So I had to figure out a way to ask her the question. So I asked her a question about, I framed it in a way she has said, I said, you said that Republicans should police their own members. You say that they should police their own members, but the Democrats have punished two other members, Paul Gosar and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Why is the situation with Lauren Boebert any different? So it kind of forced her to respond to why she has said, why she's taking a different position now, but then she wouldn't also explain what she plans to do about Lauren Boebert. So that got her to answer the question and also sidestep what they plan to do about it. So it showed people who are following it and readers and viewers, she's being evasive about the topic. And two, it got her to at least give some sense of her thinking about where she is. So, part of the challenge is, as a reporter is, how do you get someone to respond to something? And my view of it is very direct, very targeted questions, and hopefully questions that no matter how they answer or don't answer, ultimately gets them to make some news.
It sounds like it takes so much preparation, but also like you said before, being able to think quickly on your feet. And you had mentioned how you try to also think about, what is the big story of the day. And I'm curious if there's any one story that you have covered that continues to resonate with you today and why.
Yeah, I mean, it's so hard to, when I think back about stuff I've done over my career, I mean, it's just everything is a big blur. I mean, it just really is, because we do so much on such a daily basis, and I come home and I start thinking about what I'm doing the next day. So it always makes it a little complicated. But look, I think the Trump impeachments were obviously very, there's only been 4 impeachments in American history, and I covered 2 of them. So they both were in the last, 2 years. So, and those were huge stories. They both were such different stories. The first impeachment was it was a weeks-long, months-long investigation. It was an incredibly hard story to cover. That was because so many of these witnesses who were testifying about Trump's conversations with Ukraine and the pressure he was putting on the Ukraine president to investigate the Bidens and his, the administration withholding security aid to Ukraine. And there were so many witnesses who were part of that, but they were all going behind closed doors. And they were going behind closed doors in classified briefing rooms for 8-10 hours. And it was just a total nightmare as a reporter to cover, because there was high interest. Everybody wanted to know what they were saying, especially at my network. And they were behind closed doors. So how do you figure out what someone's saying behind closed doors? So it required just a lot of, me just hammering my sources, figuring out where to be to get the right people to ask the right questions, and just having the experience in covering the Hill and knowing where I could catch different people who at different times who may know what was going on. There was one episode where there was a very important witness. His name was David Holmes. He was coming in to interview, and he was going to we didn't know what he was going to say. He was a U.S. official based in Ukraine, and he had overheard a conversation between Trump and the EU ambassador about Ukraine, and no one knew what he was going to say. But I got, I had a source leak me the testimony, and I got the testimony, and I literally went on air with the testimony. I hadn't read it read it for the first time on air to Wolf Blitzer for about 12 minutes, and everybody was around me, all my competitors, listening to what he was saying, because no one even knew, not even me, until I actually read it myself. And it was a pretty revealing testimony. So that was actually, that kind of thing sticks out to me. And look, also being in the Capitol on January 6th, that was covering the impeachment after that. January 6th, we can talk about if you want to in more detail. But even the impeachment after that was really, it happened quickly and it was so intense. And I'll never forget just being at that press conference the next day with Nancy Pelosi saying he must resign or he's going to get impeached. And to me, that really just stuck out as, something that was just, we're living through just an unbelievably remarkable series of events, that led to Trump being impeached 1 week later, which of course has never happened before.
Wow. And I definitely want to talk about covering the January 6th insurrection. What was it like on the ground reporting, and how did it feel trying to report on what was happening while also trying to stay safe?
Yeah, it was a very, I always look back on that day and think that we just never had any clear idea how much danger we were in, because I naively thought I was perfectly safe, which I really was not. We came into the day knowing it was going to be a big, busy day. It was the day, of course, where they were going to try to challenge the electoral results. At the time, they had planned to do it on 4 states. And this is a process that we knew was going to take all day long, all through the night. And we knew that there was a Trump rally going on. We knew there was a Trump rally going on. But one thing that we did not realize, we obviously didn't have any sense of what was going to happen, right? So when the first real warning sign came, when suddenly there was some building that was right by the Capitol on the House side that had been, there was concern about some suspicious packages. People were told to not leave. They were investigating it. That is not totally abnormal, but it was a jittery day. So people were paying attention to it. I was sitting in my booth at the time, the 3rd floor of the Senate, monitoring the debate in the House and the Senate over the electoral challenges. And then at the time, they were debating breaking out of that live coverage of what's happening on the floor and bringing me in to talk about what's happening with this suspicious package, what's going on. But then that scare cleared. So we thought, okay, I guess everything is fine. They figured out it was just nothing, we move on. Soon after that, my colleague Ted Barrett comes in and he says to me, this is a real problem. There's a lockdown going on. They're telling us all to get back into our booths and lock our doors. And I'm like, what? Because the situation outside is getting really precarious and it's getting, the security situation is getting tenuous. And I was checking with some folks and they were saying that the exterior perimeter had been breached. So that means people had gone inside the first layer of fencing near the Capitol. So at that point, we reported that internally. And I got a security threat alert from Capitol Police. And they said, stay in your booths, you're in a lockdown, there's an external security threat. Okay, so then at that point, we broke out of the live coverage on the House and Senate floor. Wolf brought me in and I started to explain what was going on. I've only been in 2 lockdowns at that point in my career in the Capitol. And so this was obviously a serious situation. But I remember Wolf asked me, he said, there's no way anyone could get in the building, is there, Manu? And I'm like, no, this is a really secure building, Wolf. It should be fine. So lo and behold, about 10, 15 minutes later, one of my producers showed me a tweet from one of our colleagues who's in the halls that had a picture of the mob on the 2nd floor of the Senate. I just could not believe my eyes. And then I got an email from Capitol Police saying, internal security alert. get in your rooms, don't make any sounds, lock your doors. So that point obviously became much more serious. And then Wolf said, this is not, I mean, this seems like a very dangerous situation. I'm like, yes, this is incredibly dangerous. Well, obviously these people didn't go through metal detectors. We don't know what they have in their possession. And meantime, I thought I was fine because I was on the third floor of the Senate. And I should explain that in the booth where we are on the radio TV gallery on the third floor of the Senate, we have our own camera in our CNN booth. So that's where I can broadcast live from. And we're locked. We have a door. We're locked in our door. There's also, it's in the gallery. The gallery has its own door. It's locked. But, it can easily be breached. The door can easily be breached, especially one that has window panes on it. We were very fortunate that the mob did not realize where the press was, because our offices are not really marked. It's a pretty nondescript location. So by the time that, we have been broadcasting for hours, I was getting reports about what was going in. I was emailing sources, we were relying on pool reports. I was basically live for about 4 straight hours. Then suddenly the cop knocked on our door and said, "You got to evacuate, we got to evacuate, we got to evacuate." And so we were forced to leave. At that point, that's when the National Guard had come in. So this complex had gotten secure, but they were trying to clear out everybody out of the Senate wing of the Capitol. And when I walked outside, that was the first time I realized like how close they were, because right outside our booths and outside the gallery, it was totally trashed. Stuff was knocked over. It smelled like smoke bombs. There's clearly tear gas that had been emitted because there was this like slippery, grassy, greasy film that was all over the banisters and the floor. And hand sanitizer stations have been knocked over. It was just it looked like a war zone. And I did a live shot from my phone as I was walking to our secure location, and I said, it does look like a war zone out here. So at that point, we went to a secure spot. We were doing broadcasting live from there, and eventually they brought us back to the Senate a few hours later. So it was just a crazy day because it was an adrenaline rushing day. Your adrenaline's pumping all day, and really had no idea what was going on. And it really just took some time to just understand just how insane and how crazy and how scary of a situation that it was.
Wow, I cannot imagine that. You're really there on the front lines as history is being made. So.
Yeah, and you just really are reporting what's in your eyes and ears at that point, like what you're seeing, what you're hearing, and trying to just be able to explain people what's going on very, very directly, very precisely, and try not to be too rattled about it too.
Definitely. And when you are thinking more broadly about the future of journalism, with the insurrection being a huge turning point in history, what does the future of journalism look like for you?
It's changed so much since I started. I mean, after I graduated Wisconsin, I was working in the summer after my senior year at NBC 15. I was on the weekend assignment desk there. It was a fun part-time job I was doing. And then at that point, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I knew I wanted to be a journalist, but I didn't know exactly what kind of journalist. So I started to apply to a whole bunch of places. And I moved out to Washington only because my folks had relocated from the Chicago area to DC, to the DC burbs. And I decided, you know what, I'll live with them, look for work in journalism, and was in Washington. And I got a job writing for a trade publication covering environmental policy. And I didn't know anything about government. I didn't know anything about environmental policy. I barely knew anything about how to be a reporter. But I learned really all of that in my career. And as I was trying different things and really practicing and stuff. I say that as a way to answer your question, because at that time, we had a website that was updated. And that's in the first publication, which is called Inside Washington Publishers. They had narrow verticals that covered specific areas of policy news. Mine was called Inside EPA, InsideEPA.com, only updated once a day. I think if that, maybe once every other day. Washington Post at the time, they had a separate web team. There was an entire news gathering staff for the web versus print. It was not integrated. CNN did not have nearly the operation it has now. And now everything is being integrated. Everybody has a Washington Post has a video component. Washington Post has obviously has a digital and a newsprint component. We have a big digital presence. We also have obviously a big TV presence. So a lot of the news organizations are doing similar things because they can offer a variety of different platforms. We at CNN are moving big time into like the streaming part. There's CNN Plus is coming out next year, which is essentially a streaming television network because of the, obviously people are not watching as much TV and are moving on to watching streaming services on their TV. So, that is going to be where I think the big focus is going to be of the news organizations, putting a lot of money into original programming that will go on the streaming services. But for me, like I just kind of view my job as my job is to write good stories on CNN.com, find out the facts, report it on TV, and if there's a medium's change, I have to be consistent with my work, and I can do it in whatever medium that we offer at that time.
It's really interesting to learn how it has evolved throughout the years, and now we have a whole class that is ready to graduate. So I'm wondering what advice you would like to share as they begin their careers.
So I would say a few things. One, I would say definitely be open to trying new things. Take a risk, and that's going to be a theme of two of my speech on the Sunday of graduation. Is take risks, be okay with trying something new. I mean, I jumped into something that I had no idea. I didn't know anything about Washington. I didn't know anything about covering environmental policy at the time. I just kind of learned it on the fly. My next job, when I went to Congressional Quarterly, I learned it as I was doing the job, covering Congress. And then when I went to the Hill newspaper, I had a different beat. I was covering politics more generally, and I was covering the Senate leadership for them. I moved off from being an energy reporter to a Senate leadership reporter. So I learned that, even though I had never really covered general politics. And then I moved over to Politico, drawing on my experiences from my other jobs. And at Politico, I started doing more TV, and I started learning how to be on TV. And that led to my next job. So I really didn't know when I left Wisconsin what I wanted to be and where I would end up, which part of journalism I would end up in. But I was open to trying different things, whether it be TV, whether it be local news, whether it be national news, whether it be a producer, whether it be a reporter, whether it be a newspaper reporter. Like, I just wanted to try a lot of different things. So that's a big thing. Just be flexible about the different opportunities that are offered to you. Take an opportunity that is presented itself to you, even if it's not your end all be all, learn from it, get better, and then continue to progress in your career. Write as much as you can. It's really good to be a good writer. That helps. How do you become a good writer? You just do more of it. I was not a very good writer when I first started, but I continued to write, and I feel like I really developed strong writing skills just because of so many years of practice. But just more and more, the better you become. Look, I would also say, like, it's not a problem not knowing something and being new. One of the benefits you have of being a new reporter is that you don't know anything. You're learning on the job, and it's okay to say, I don't know, can you explain it to me? But it's actually better. You're in an advantage in a lot of ways than I am as an experienced reporter, because if you don't know something, you can have someone explain it to you, and then you can learn more than perhaps I can, because someone may assume I already know. So take advantage of being new, try different things. And if you get rejected from something, journalism is a hard field to break into. I don't want to sugarcoat that. It's challenging, but don't give up if you really want to do it. I applied for so many jobs, my first job, my second job, my third job. I applied for tons of jobs. I got turned down all the time. People discouraged me. Another thing I'll talk about too on Sunday. You just need to really push ahead and try to see what presents itself to you, and then hopefully something will work out. So don't give up. There's a lot of opportunity that's out there.
Well, thank you so much for all the advice that you shared and taking the time to speak with me today.
Yeah, no problem. And there's my terrace chair that I'm sure you see right behind me. I use this this is my at-home live shot location. So I always have my terrace shot in the background. So Wisconsin folks, when they see it, they love seeing the terrace chair in the background of my CNN live shots.
That's great.
Oh yeah, it's a necessary addition to any home outdoor space.
Grace Boyle. Claire Chen. Hallie Fiedler. Harrison Freuk. Samantha Henschel. John Murphy. Kirian Sprecher Kaczmarek. Cameron Sieski. Kate Morton.